I'm Brendan O'Byrne from Norwood, Massachusetts. World War II veterans and widows of veterans, they understand, they've seen it. They've seen it from wartime to the end of life, and they understand exactly what happens to a person when they go to combat. Did a 15-month deployment to Afghanistan in the Korengal Valley with the 173rd Airborne Brigade. The experience in Afghanistan was, sometimes terrifying, sometimes boring, sometimes exhilarating, but most of all, it was a bonding experience between a group of men, and that was the thing I got out of it the most, was the guys that I served with. What Outward Bound will do for veterans on these trips that are coming from Afghanistan and Iraq will provide them a place away from society to bond again, to be understood by people that have been through the same thing. When I was in Afghanistan, I watched people literally die for each other. And I come back to a society that honks at me if I've taken too long to make a right-hand turn. Outward Bound provides a safe space for guys, men and women, to be understood again, to reconnect and be able to heal together rather than as individuals. After my Outward Bound trip to Maine, I felt really good about myself. It's one of the better feelings I've had in a long time. A place like Outward Bound is the place to heal.
My name is Sebastian Junger. I'm an author and a journalist. I've covered a lot of wars overseas, and I co-directed with my colleague Tim Hetherington a movie called Restrepo about a platoon in combat in Afghanistan. The thing about combat is that you have a small group of people who are completely interreliant on each other in a very difficult environment. And once you get used to being in a small group like that, where you really can count on everyone else's help and support in the worst kind of circumstances, once you get used to that, it's actually very hard to give it up. And a lot of soldiers actually miss the war that they were in. Not that they miss war, but they miss being in a small group where they feel so safely protected by their brothers and sisters. And what Outward Bound is able to do is, in some ways, recreate that environment, except in a non-combat setting. It's in the wilderness, but still, it's a dangerous environment. And there is something about re-experiencing that closeness, that interreliance on others, that is very, very therapeutic. And it allows vets to then go back into their civilian lives with some measure of confidence and sort of a feeling of control that maybe they didn't have before when they just come back from overseas. So if you can donate money to Outward Bound and help 2,500 vets a year reintegrate themselves back into society, it's life-saving for the vets, but it's also life-saving for this country. I mean, the vets we have coming home, these are young people in their 20s. This is the future. These are the future leaders of our country. This is America.
I'm John Whitehead, a big fan of Outward Bound. There are 500 veterans waiting to go on Outward Bound trips. And so the need for the money is urgent. With my own Navy experience, where I participated in 4 invasions, both in the Atlantic and in the Pacific, and was pretty actively involved in those invasions of landing troops on enemy soil. I, as with many other veterans of World War II, have an understanding of what it's like to go through war, how terrible it is, how it can affect your lives adversely as well as in a favorable way. And I think we can understand how a program like Outward Bound would be of benefit, would have been of benefit to us when we came out of World War II, and will indeed be a benefit for today's soldiers coming home from battle. Anybody who's listening, I urge them to support a few dollars, as much as you can afford, to bring these soldiers on these very valuable experiences.